Hey, what's going on? Do you film dance, or have you been wanting to get into filming dance? Or are you just simply a videographer looking to kind of get better at filming dance because you do it once in a while? Well, these are my 5 tips on how to make really high quality dance videos. My name is Bryce Cobell, and if you're new to the channel, thank you for being here. Before we get started, why don't you just go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because it really helps me out here, and I just want to keep making content like this. So just so you know who I am, I have been filming dance for like 10 years. I grew up as a dancer, I grew up around dancers. I just sort of became the guy that like filmed my friends. But then eventually people started asking me more, people started paying me for it. But I've also learned a lot from people in the industry and like people who are just like way better than me at it, you know? So why don't we just get right into it? The first one is finding the right location. A lot of the time, whenever you're filming a dance video, you're just sort of focused on what the dancer is gonna do. Being in the right environment can actually amplify your dance. It can amplify your movement. It can amplify how your movement looks. I try really hard to walk around the area that I meet the dancer and look for something that's like really unique and something that kind of matches their outfit and their vibe. And it can be anything from like a busy street corner, an art museum. I think an easy way to find good locations is just to go to like your city's art district, because they have really cool buildings. They have really cool art textures just like outside that you can film in front of. So that's just like something I always try to keep in mind whenever I'm filming in like a new city. I think it's good to kind of figure out whether you want a busy foreground and background, or do you want like something static. I find a lot of the videos that do well showcase sort of just like an organic feeling, like you're just in a city. You're dancing just on a street corner. Like, think about the audience too, like attention spans aren't great. So make it more interesting so that people can kind of like have things to look at. You want to look for like relevant landmarks. If you are in, say, California, what's a relevant landmark in California? Maybe like palm trees or the Hollywood sign. So you want to place those things in the background so that people know like this looks like California. You know what I mean? And I think that can really help position your videos well, because it's not just a video like up against a white wall where they're like, they could literally be anywhere. So the second one is actually really important, learning to communicate your expectations. So this one can actually make or break a video. Talking to your dancer and letting them know where to look, how long to dance for, where to kind of position themselves in the frame, you know, a maximum amount of area that they can dance. You know, try to let them know like, oh, don't go too far forward, like try to keep within this area. You know, if you're filming someone like a breaker, it's really hard to control where the movement's gonna be, and you might have to adjust yourself. It's good to communicate expectations and what you want to see, but also you have to be adaptable too. You gotta like realize that these are dancers. A lot of the time they're not thinking about the camera. They don't want to think about the camera. You want them to focus on the dance. Some people are actually really good at doing both, showing textures, dancing to the music, but also like focusing toward the camera. To be honest, those are the dancers that actually go the most viral. They know how to dance, they know how to listen, but they also know how to package their dance. In terms of like timing for the video, I would say best timing for videos is around 45 seconds. And that's just because of like audience retention. You don't want to show too much. You want to make sure that like people are watching the dancer, but like they're getting the point across pretty quickly. It's all about what you want. Like if you just don't care about views, if you just want to post dope videos, whatever, let them do their thing. And that's the kind of final part, is like sometimes you just have to let them cook. A lot of the times if I'm working with like a crew, it takes time for them to warm up. You can't just be like, all right guys, everyone gets 2 rounds, you know, pick your 2 songs. Like it doesn't work that way. It doesn't feel organic. If you're in a pressure situation, like, hey, I only have 10 minutes, can we just like, you know, shoot a couple videos? Sure. Sometimes I'll set up a camera and just make it wide enough, set up the framing properly, really take my time, like making sure that like the lighting looks good. Just let them go and let them do their thing. And honestly, some of the best stuff comes out midway through or at the end, and you can't really tell what's gonna happen. You just kind of have to trust the process and just make sure everything's working on your end. And take note, like, oh, this part was dope, this part was dope. And that kind of goes into the next portion, which is composing your image properly. This one's kind of interesting because it's really subjective, and it really depends on what you're doing this for. Like, are you just trying to get really hype social media videos? You don't really need to figure out an artistic composition. You just need to figure out, do you want it to be high? Do you want it to be mid? Or do you want it to be low? Or do you want it to be really wide? Or do you want it to be really zoomed in? I think that the zoomed in videos do really well because it puts a lot of focus on the dancer. All the background sort of like fades out into this blur and it looks really high quality. And that's because like the general viewer, you know, it's more like a visual thing for them. They're not thinking like, oh, what aperture lens are you using? It's like they're just looking at the thing and being like, oh, this looks sick. And yeah, I used to sort of like use a gimbal and do all this crazy stuff. I've used a slider before, but to be honest, most of the time, for time's sake, it's actually just easier to just set it up so that your composition has enough of the background to see. There's enough room you can keyframe in post, because dancers move around. They're not gonna stay in the same place unless you are like, do not move. If it's like a hip hop dancer or like a house dancer, you know, you kind of have to have enough room in the frame for that so that you can crop and you can kind of move and like follow them. Yeah, those are just things to keep in mind. Giving enough space, making sure that they're in frame properly. You really want it to be about the dancer, not really about you. So this one actually leads nicely into the next one, which is the difference between movement and stationary. Being stationary is easier. You can get way more videos done just being stationary. Sometimes I'll go on a tripod with the video head and I'll just follow them a little bit just to make sure they don't go out of frame. If you really want to get spicy, like go on a gimbal, you know, go handheld, whatever, like kind of play around with different movements. You don't want the movement to like be too crazy. You want to add enough movement to the shot to like give some feeling, but you don't want to like ruin the immersion. You know, you want people to still be focused on the dancer. At the end of the day, the main subject is the dancer. You are just meant to capture the dancer in the best way possible. If you're filming like a music video, you can be more artistic. Use crazy gimbal moves. You can go handheld and make it look really chaotic. For me, I mostly shoot videos for social media, so I'm just mostly trying to like make sure that they look the best they can, and I'm just like capturing that the cleanest way possible. So this is the final one, and I think this is the most important one, and that is lighting. There's certain situations, like if you're shooting like a music video where you have time to create the lighting, you can literally do whatever you want. You can make it really dramatic, you can make it really beautiful. If you're like me, where like, okay, I'm meeting up with a friend or I'm meeting up with a dancer who I've never met before, so it's already a little bit awkward. We're gonna walk out here, I only have half an hour with them, so I need to figure out what we're gonna do. The first thing I always do is figure out the sun position. You know, you don't want it to be too backlit, or use a reflector to bounce the sun back on their face, but that also creates a very like artificial look. So a really good tip for sun is to always position it out of the frame, like don't have it in the frame, like not directly on the face, but coming at an angle so that it kind of creates this like roll off. There aren't always going to be situations where you have the perfect sunlight. Just try to play with the sun as much as possible. Bring a reflector if you want to get some extra bounce. If you don't have access to the sun, like here in Canada where the sun goes down literally at like 3 p.m. It's like ridiculous. I have to bring lights. I have to sort of set something up. If you want to get some cheap lights that work really well, these are the Godox TL30s. You want to get a set of lights that can last a long time. Something that's bright, something that has effects, like you can use color, something you can control with your phone. I can just pack them in a suitcase really easily. They're magnetic. You can literally just like set them up anywhere there's metal. In most houses, there are studs in the walls. You can just mount the lights to the studs, create some really cool lighting. I've filmed so many videos where I wish I brought my lights, and it's a little bit more effort. It is totally worth it, to be honest. There's been countless situations where I've just like brought a portable light and the video always looks like 10 times better. So that's it. I just want to thank you so much for being here. If you have any more questions about how to shoot dance videos, you can leave a comment down below. And again, if you've made it this far and you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. I'm so close to 10K. It's killing me. I've been like at this like 8 to 9K for like so long, but I want to break that threshold this year. All right, you can go now.